Right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. I'm Sarah Hawkins, also known as Sarah Hawkey, and I'll be your host this evening and one of your co-commentators for this GT7 Base Championship. And again, pleasure as always, I am joined again by motorsport enthusiast, racer, and co-commentator Kirk.
Thank you for the introduction, Sarah. I've been looking forward to this all week, and I'm certainly looking forward to what will be a very exciting round here at Dragon Trail tonight.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be a track that I'm sure most racers know quite well and quite familiar with. But before we get into the racing, we're going to give you a quick series rundown for anybody that's new to the championship or new to the stream. So we are back and better than ever for season 2 of the Nighthawk Racing First Championship. We have an 8-event championship spanning over 16 race sessions and 8 weeks in total. Lots of different car manufacturers on the grid and potentially 27 drivers with some great tracks on the calendar. We have 3 official time sessions with a reverse grid sprint race up first, followed by qualifying, and then tonight we'll be treated to a 38-lap feature race around Dragon Trail Seaside. Okay, Kirk, could you give us a quick overview of the event session format and point scale, please?
Absolutely, Sarah. So starting at about 8:30 British Standard Time, we'll start with our 15-minute reverse championship order sprint race. Um, this will be an open tyre choice race. So you can choose to start on the softs and be a bit quicker at the start of the race, or you can choose to start on the medium tyre, where you may not be as fast at the start of the race, but the race will certainly come towards you towards the end of the race. Um, after, and this is also a rolling start to help to help space the grid out a little bit heading in towards the first few corners. As we know, the faster drivers will be towards the back of the pack. After the sprint race at about 10 to 9, we'll have our 10-minute qualifying session. Um, this will be a session which should hopefully mean quite a lot for the race tonight, because obviously Dragon Trail maybe not the easiest track to overtake on, but it will uh, it will be. There's a few rules to the qualifying session. So the tire you set your fastest lap on is the tire you have to start the feature race on. Um, I think the only exception to that rule is if you don't set a lap time, or if we have a wet qualifying session where the moisture bar is over a third full, then it will be open tire choice for the start of the feature race, are in that it is also a wet start for the feature race. Um, there's also points for the top three. So if you qualify on pole, you get 3 bonus points. Second place, you get 2 points, and if you qualify third, you get 1 bonus point. And then straight after qualifying, we'll go into our feature race, which, as Sarah says, will be a 38 lap race. It is a grid start, so maybe you don't get the best start, you could certainly see yourself losing a few positions. There is also a rule within the feature race where you have to use at least 2 compounds of tyres if it is a dry race, which around here it should be a dry race. I'm pretty sure we don't have wet weather around here. So you'd have to use at least 2 different compounds, whether it be soft, medium, soft hard, or medium hard. As long as you get those rules uh, applied to those rules, you won't get disqualified. Um, Other than that, obviously, as I said, there's no rain on this track. But at other rounds, if we do see rain in the feature race, if the moisture bar goes over one third full, it will be then declared a wet race. Therefore, the tire rule goes out the window pretty much. Then after that, we'll go into our point system. A lot of points up for grabs here tonight. In within the sprint race, we get 20 points for first, and as you can see, it goes all the way down to 2 for 14th, with an extra bonus point for fastest lap. So maybe if you're not having the best race towards the end of it, you can always pit in for a brand new set of softs and try and go for fastest lap. to gain that extra point. And in the feature race, we go from 40 to 4 points with 2 extra points for fastest lap in the feature race. Um, Again, this can make all the difference. So, say if you're running down towards the bottom of the pack and you're in 11th and you pit for a fresh set of softs and get the fastest lap, you get the same amount of points as you would for finishing a position higher. So there's certainly a lot of points up for grabs here tonight, Sarah. And if say someone maybe not here tonight, you can certainly see yourself jumping up quite a few positions in our standing, Sarah.
100%. I couldn't agree more. As we always say, there's points across the board for everybody in all finishing positions. But yeah, if you may have noticed a few drivers that have missed a few rounds, they do lose quite a lot of points compared to the more regular drivers. Unfortunately, these things happen when you miss a round or so. But yeah, it helps, finishing. If even if you're having a bit of a bad race, finishing will get you a lot of points and will help towards the end of the championship, as well as the bonus points that we have for both qualifying and the fastest lap. Right down to the end in round number 8, it could see, you know, drivers getting those bonus points. It could come in handy for winning the title. But before we get into the sprint race of this evening, we'll just go back to last week a little bit. So our sprint race podium of last week, we saw a surprise guest, shall I say, onto that top step of the podium in Coach. But I think it was a long time coming. We know that Coach, obviously, he practices quite a bit for these races and he's always been fast in that Supra. But there was no stopping him last week. He came home in first in the sprint race with McManley following in second and last season's champion Swizzy in third in that Lexus RCF. But yeah, it was quite an interesting sprint race last week, don't you think, Kirk?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially coming towards the end of the sprint race where we saw coaches' tyres just about running out of life. Um, and only just holding off in the end to McMahon. I think that gap was just under 2 seconds. Even then, between the top six or so, I think the top six was only separated by about 6 seconds or so. So really, we could have seen our the people who did finish on the podium could have finished anywhere in that top six, Sarah.
Yeah, it was a very close race indeed, and even in the feature race as well. But I believe we're nearly getting ready to race. So we'll give you a quick overview of the standings while the grid's just forming now. And we'll come back to this later, giving you a bit of more detail on the championship standings as they stand. But if we go to the main race feed, we're getting ready for lights out. So I just put all that information on for you. And Kirk, if you want to take it away when Rip into Tearing goes over that start-finish line.
Absolutely, Sarah. So leading us away tonight for our sprint race is Ripping the Tearing, followed by LB Lewis, followed by Hartman, Midnight ISO, Coach, Pedro, Kai, Mac, Swizzy, the Dark Lord, and Callum rounding out the back of the pack today for this sprint race. Heading into the first real corner, we've got a few people possibly looking at going side by side, but everything seems all right for now. Everyone is going one by one. I saw, was it a possible McLaren there? Well, I think it might have been Mac getting a little bit loose on the exit of turn 3. But other than that, everyone's been quite nice. As we see Mac go for an audacious lunge up the inside on Katie Kai. Maybe Katie Kai caught napping just a little bit there, which allows McManley to sneak up the inside into P7 and possibly looking to put the pressure on the drivers in front, such as Pedro and Coach. Following that, I think Cade Kai maybe caught a few other drivers behind out. Maybe Dark. I think I saw Dark Lord possibly go into the back of him as we see up front. Mac looking to go up the inside of Pedro up into this right-hander, which Pedro really doesn't fight all that much and allows Mac up into P. A very impressive start from Mac Manley on this first lap. But other than that, Sarah, I think everyone's keeping it quite clean, aren't they?
Yeah, it's all coming. Obviously, I've just seen all drivers go through that first run of the death chicken or the death chicane as we call it. All drivers getting away with without crashing on that first lap, which is good to see, and it bodes well for the rest of the sprint race. But you know, it doesn't mean that we won't see some sort of casualty of this evening. 9 times out of 10 you can drive it perfectly fine. It just takes that one chance. If you kind of outbrake yourself, you go a bit too fast, or you don't get the right line, the death chicane, as the community likes to call it, will definitely catch you out. But yeah, all drivers, getting away nice and easy. And as we see Rip and Terran going on a little bit of grass there, which brings him back into the pack, and he does get swallowed up by that pack pretty quickly. Yeah, McManley seems on a roll tonight.
Absolutely, up into P6. That's 3 positions off the start. I wanted to say, possibly not the greatest start for Rip and Terran. Obviously, starting on pole tonight, losing. Oh, Manley there going a bit wide there, Sarah. Did you get a replay to see what happened?
Yeah, unfortunately,
as well.
I think that might be because of the potential lag issues that we've got with the Dark Lord. I think maybe on McManley's POV he was given plenty of room, but on as we could see on the screen, the two coming together, which did unsettle Mac's car quite a bit, so that will definitely be one for the stewards to look at afterwards, and we'll put some plans in place for the feature race. Yeah, but unfortunately for Mac, obviously he was on a good kind of start of the race there. As coach, the first casualty of this evening in the Death Chicken. Or Death Chicane. I'm so used to saying the Death Chicken because that's what we call it quite a bit. So I'm very sorry if I keep saying that. I do mean the Death Chicane. But we see Swizzy coming into the pits.
It looks like he's picked up damage on that front left, possibly running through that chicane. Certainly not the first driver we've seen so far to pick up damage, as I believe Pedro also picked up damage on the first lap. On the exit of the chicane, a corner that requires a lot of commitment and easily can be taken wrong, Sarah.
Oh, 100%. Obviously, we know this track quite well. A lot of the racers that we have here tonight have driven, multiple laps around Dragon Trail Seaside. It's a track that I enjoy because it's so different, and it's obviously got a few challenging sectors. But like I say, you can drive it 9 times out of 10 perfectly, and it just takes that one kind of lap to ruin a race. So I'm not surprised, a few drivers getting caught out by that chicane there, as it is quite tough. And we all know, both sides, you've got a nice concrete barrier ready to collect you if you do get it wrong. So yeah, unfortunately, I think we're going to see quite a few drivers, banging a few of their wheel arches against those concrete walls and picking up some damage. But all in the sprint race, is quite a fast-paced race, so hopefully it wouldn't affect them too much. But in the feature race, we probably see it affect their race a little bit more over that longer duration. But a few drivers, I think KD the Kai unfortunately got a little bit sideways into the chicane there. But yeah, just keeping an eye on everybody. I think Dark Lord, he is experiencing a little bit of glitching, which unfortunately, obviously for the other drivers, they're having to try and guess whereabouts he is on track. But sometimes these things, can't be helped.
I believe. Oh, as we see a move from Hartman up into up the inside into the second corner. Maybe LB Lewis there being quite aggressive on the exit of turn 3 and pushing him out a little bit wide there, Sarah. If you can get a replay of that.
I think I might be a bit too late to get to that replay of that. But yeah, unfortunately, obviously that move costing him a position to Midnight. And Midnight now on the charge to try and get LB Racing, aka Lewis. But obviously got the Dark Lord just behind. And we all know how kind of powerful that GTR is on a straight line compared to that Lexus. So unfortunately, yeah, one move costing Hartman a few positions there.
Yeah. I believe Louis is also carrying damage, Sarah, on that front left.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
It seems like maybe that damage might be slowing down just a little bit in a straight line and could be contributing to a bit more understeer during these high-speed corners, which is definitely not what you want when you need accuracy in this high-speed chicane, Sarah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, obviously you want the car. If you learnt the car, the characteristics, you want it how you've learnt it. So a little bit of damage obviously changes that whole characteristic and the style of the car. So one time your car's fine, the next it's not. You're understeering, you're oversteering. You're just trying to fight that car going around the corner. So I can imagine the Dark Lord having a little bit of a tough time in that GTR. Yeah, quite a
Absolutely.
few drivers driving with damage. Obviously, we've got Dark Lord, Pedro, all the way down to Pedro, who's got some damage.
Yeah,
McManley still with the damage. But a lot of other drivers,
yeah,
deciding to pit and repair that damage.
absolutely. As you saying, is obviously with the damage, your car becomes just that little bit more understeery, and you just a bit of lose a bit of predictability, should you say? As I saw Mac making a bit of a mistake there on the exit of turn three, Sarah.
Yeah, unfortunately, Max still with that damage as opposed to Swizzy, who pitted, got rid of that damage. So obviously, Swizzy will be going a lot faster here. But yeah, unfortunately, Mac was doing well on that first lap, making quite a few moves up. But I think this track is kind of open to side by side racing, but in some corners and in some sectors around this track. Oh, as we see someone going round, I spotted someone midnight going round in the chicane, or coming out of the chicane, should I say. I saw a big smoke screen picking up a lot of damage, front and rear end. Obviously not what he wanted when he was chasing for that first place, but just goes to show, the chicane is a tough one to get 100% right. So a lot of drivers, probably using this session, get to grips with the chicane after not racing it for a while, and hopefully in qualifying and the feature race they'll know how fast and kind of how to attack it, so that in the feature race it doesn't affect them too much.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. We know a few drivers use this sprint race to really feel the track out, to learn their breaking points, a feel for the track, to see where they can push, where they feel confident, and areas where they can try and work on being just that little bit more committed. So obviously all the big points are in the feature race. Yeah, so certainly is a place you want to make a mistake. You probably would rather it be within the sprint race rather than the feature race, Sarah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Obviously, there's nearly double the points available in the feature race. So if your main aim of the race was to pick up quite a big haul of points, then committing in the feature race is definitely worth it. As we see Hartman going onto the outside line of LB racing here into the last corner.
Absolutely. Hartman trying to hold that momentum around the outside of the corner. It doesn't quite work, but it gives him that slingshot down to the pitch straight. Is he going to look to the inside or the outside? He isn't. He's just going to give LB Lewis just a little bit of a bump going down towards the pitch straight. Is he going to possibly look to challenge into turn two? No, he decides he's going to sit back behind for now, Sarah.
Yeah, these two, very close, nose to tail, as they say. But yeah, obviously, again, going back to what I was saying a minute ago, this track, once you get under the slipstream of the car in front, it is quite difficult to follow. And there's a lot of grass and a lot of concrete barriers that are ready to collect the car if they do go off. As Hartman goes into that inside line, fully commits, although just that right hand side tyres, going on that red bit of tarmac, which does sometimes unsettle the car and gives LB Lewis quite a run, and he's on the outside of Hartman going into this corner here.
As Hartman tries to hold the inside line, can LB Lewis hold that momentum around the outside with the better traction? No, he cannot. Hartman gets the better traction out of that right-hander, which allows him to lead heading in towards the chicane. It's important now for Hartman to have a good run through the chicane, which he does, as we see LB Lewis just getting a little bit squirrely on the exit. The BMW not liking the curbs as much as the Lexus. And then Hartman is now got quite a decent lead now, heading towards the pit straight, as we see LB Lewis possibly coming under threat from the Dark Lord, Sarah.
Yeah, potentially losing quite a bit of time, and driving the BMW like not, yeah, we see BMWs drifting all over the place, and especially with soft tires, that have seen better days. It just goes to show that that car is very difficult to handle in these high speed corners. But as you say, the Dark Lord just behind, waiting for the time, waiting for the space to try and go past LB Racing, and behind them in a little bit of no man's land at the moment, we have Callum, and we all know Callum is probably gearing up for the feature race for that however many consecutive wins it is now. But yeah, Callum usually uses these sprint sessions to kind of get used to the track if he's not driven it before, but also kind of build on his strategy for the feature race, as I'm sure everyone else is as well. Just behind we have Ripon Deterrin, and we have a little group here with Ripon Deterrin, Pedro and Swizzy. Obviously Pedro's still driving with that damage, so out of the three here, Pedro will unfortunately come under kind of a little bit of pressure from these two. Although he does move out of the way, which is very kind of gentleman-like. He knows he's got that damage. He doesn't want to hold Swizzy up too much. But yeah, Midnight, still driving with all that damage. So I think, Midnight just going for the points here. Not necessarily, fastest laps or anything like that. Just get through the sprint race and ready for the feature.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously Midnight knows, well, pitting now pretty much ruins his race, and in this minute and a half we have left, he believes he can hold back the two of McManley and Coach without losing all that much time. As I do believe this should be our final lap for our front runners, Sarah.
Yeah, and like you said last lap, Hartman getting a 1 second gap on LB Racing, which I'm sure he'll be very, very happy about. And will look like he's about to take, one of his first Nighthawk Racing podiums and win. But I will double check that, as Midnight created quite a nice strategy page for us. But yeah, if you want to take it away for the last lap while I check that.
Lovely. As we see, Hartman leading the way. And which I assume should be our final lap of the race. Heading in towards probably the most daunting part of the circuit, which is the chicane. I think with a 1.6 second gap to LB Lewis behind, I believe all he has to do is just take it a little bit easy, make sure he gets his line right through here, and this race win, it should be as good as his. And same with LB Lewis. Although LB Lewis didn't not have the best run out of the chicane, is this going to possibly put him under threat from the likes of Callum and the Dark Lord into the final corner? Maybe not quite. Maybe maybe just a little bit longer, and LB Lewis would have lost that position. As I do believe we will get one more lap from Hartman at least, followed by LB Lewis, who does cross the line to finish P2. So yeah, Hartman gets an extra lap, extra victory lap, should I say?
I was literally about to say that he gets a victory lap all of his own.
Yeah, a very good drive from Hartman tonight in the sprint race, Sarah. 2 weeks, 2 new winners.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about these races, that we never know week on week who is going to win the sprint races. They do kind of open up to the drivers, and it's basically whoever's staying on track, going for those battles, going for those daring moves, and who can fight through the battle, through the pack as quick as they can. And today it is Hartman, and I can confirm it will be his first ever Nighthawk win. He did get a podium when he was in Lobby 2 for that first couple of races, but yeah, his first win in Lobby 1, which I'm sure in this victory lap he'll be taking it all in, taking in the win, and that'll put him probably in a good mood, a happy mood, and he'll be on a high for the feature race and qualifying.
Absolutely. It was a good drive from LB Lewis. We saw a very impressive, very opportunistic, possibly to say, move on LB Lewis in that high speed and middle sector, to help him take the lead from Lewis. And and to win to finish first you have to finish. It was very impressive, not to pick up any damage during the run through the chicane, as we saw a lot of people falling foul of the chicane and scraping the wall on the exit and getting a bit of damage, Sarah.
Yeah, and I'm sure all drivers will be trying their best to avoid that in the qualifying, which is just about to follow. But yeah, it just goes to show, you tap the wall even slightly, and you damage the front end, maybe a couple of suspension. But we will get ready for the qualifying session. But while we do, this week we've got Midnight ISO, the other co-founder of Nighthawk Racing, providing his very own hot lap this week. So I will put it on, and we'll have Kirk, commentating over his lap, and we'll see how Midnight does.
So to start your hot lap off, you really want to make sure you get a good run out of this final corner, making sure to straighten the car up early to be able to apply the throttle as aggressively as you can without losing the rear end. As we run down the pit straight, it's certainly important to turn the steering wheel as little as possible to lose as little time and speed as possible. Heading into the first proper corner, which is turn 2, brake just before that curb starts on the right, making sure just to clip that curb on the left, and you're taking full advantage of the curb on the right to open up the exit of the corner and allow the car to run wide on exit. Coming into this right-hander, you really want to chuck it in hard. You want to really attack that curb on the inside to straighten up the car on the exit of that little flick to get straight braking zone to really be able to get the rear to rotate and again attack the inside curb and straighten up the car as aggressively as you can. Now, this is the most important part of the track, I do believe, because you really want to flow this part as well as you can. You don't want to take too much curb as it can unsettle the car, but you also want to attack it as best you can to really keep the momentum up. Coming into this next sector, you want to brake on as the car curb starts on the left there, making sure to really try and open up the corner before you turn in. Not really attacking the curb on the right at that previous corner, as that can upset the car on exit. Now, this part of the track, you really need to be as committed as you can. As we saw from Luke, just lifting off to stabilize the car before really attacking the apexes of the chicane. Now, again, for the final corner, we see here Luke drives it in deep, looks to cut back and straighten up the car on the exit and run down towards the pit straight, which on what will be a 36.9. And certainly be looking to see how that would fare in our qualifying session, or if anybody can top that time after we start, Sarah.
It's good to see a slightly different, perspective in Midnight ISO. Usually we have either Pedro or Swizzy, so it's good to see, Midnight sitting a hot lap. And as I've said previously, it's a track that we all know quite well, and we all do. I think we all drive remarkably well, and it's a track that I always enjoy racing. But yeah, quite a good time. And I'm sure he'll be trying his best to, in the qualifying on low fuel to try and set a close time. Or if not, as we saw last week, he qualified quite high up. Although, unfortunately, in the feature race, it did unfold for him a little bit. But I'm sure he'll be trying his best not for that to happen today. But yeah, as we've got a bit of time, just going to show you the championship standings before we get into qualifying, and then into talking about some of the drivers that we've got on the grid tonight. Right, so as you can see, Callum still on that top spot of the driver standings with 248 points, and as you can see on this page, it's 1 all the way down to 19. And you can see, Hartman, which is currently in P9, but I'm sure after that sprint race victory, he will he'll be climbing quite a few positions. But again, Pedro always consistently getting quite a handful of points, which has kept him within that kind of the realm of getting a top 5 in the drivers' championship. But we've also got the likes of Katie Dekai, who's climbing the ranks as well. And on the second page, we've got 20th all the way down to 24th. But yeah, let's get into talking about some of the drivers. And I'm excited to see, all the drivers providing us with quite a good sprint race. And I will start off with Ripon Deterrin. So, to start off with, we'll talk about Ripon Deterrin. He's been promoted to Lobby 1 this week. And last week, around Watkins Glen, Ripon secured a second place and third place finish in his Ford GT, which we all know is quite a difficult car on both fuel and tyre wear. So to get a second and third place, especially around Watkins Glen, is definitely a really good showing from him. And Ripon is currently in 13th place with 103 points in total. We then have LB Racing, aka Lewis, and he's ready to hit the track as we saw in the sprint race, ready to get in the podium and hold on to it. So week after week, Lewis has been having some brilliant battles with the other drivers. Can we see the same again tonight? I'm sure we will, and we have already in the sprint race, so it sets him up well for the feature race. But LB Racing is currently in 12th place with 130 points and is tied with points with Big Crazy Bertie, our Lobby 2 host. And on to Coach. What can I say about Coach? Let me think. I've heard that he drove pretty well last week. I don't know if you guys would know anything about that. I'm only joking. Coach had an amazing sprint race last week, beating the rest of the pack and securing his first Lobby 1 win. I'm sure he'll be looking to do the same again today and knocking on the door of the podium. Coach has 161 points and is in 7th place. Next up, we then have McManley. One of our drivers of the day from last week's event around Watkins Glen. He secured himself 2 second place finishes, which promoted him into 3rd place overall in the championship. We all know that McManley likes to drive this Seaside layout, although usually he did let us know that usually he drives the Supra around here. So we'll see how he does in the Mercedes AMG. McManley is currently in 3rd place overall with 206 points. And my last driver, before I hand you over to Kirk, is Pedro. And Pedro will be looking forward to tonight's race. It's around a track that I know he likes and can drive remarkably well. As always, a massive thank you to Pedro, who has provided another tutorial video, which again is available on the Nighthawk Racing YouTube and has been very helpful to the other drivers, and it's definitely worth a watch. Pedro is in 6th place with 162 points. And I'll hand you over to Kirk, who will give you a little bit of an overview on the rest of the drivers.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So started off, we have Midnight. A very good round last week for Midnight. Although picking up a few penalties here and there, and obviously we saw that little spin within the feature race, which he always seemed to pick up. He drove very well overall, managing to finish P4 in the sprint race, and then qualifying second to get 2 bonus points, and then taking full advantage of his good qualifying position to finish P4 in the feature race as well. A very good round for Midnight, but I'm sure he wishes what could have been if he didn't have that spin or pick up as many penalties as he did. Um, after Midnight is currently sat P8 in our championship on 157 points. After Midnight, we have the Dark Lord. A middling performance from the Dark Lord last week, finishing at P6 in the sprint race. at the back of that top six pack, as we mentioned, all separated by just about 6 seconds by the time the sprint race is finished. Um, from there, he did an alternate strategy in both qualifying and the feature race, opting to qualify on the hard tyre, which saw him qualify last, unfortunately. But he made a slightly made amends within the sprint, or in the feature race, should I say. Ended up finishing P5, thanks to avoiding too much drama and keeping the consistency. Um, After Louis, we have Callum. Callum again, we see this quite often. Well, maybe not so much today. That we during the sprint races that he usually doesn't finish as high up as we would usually come to expect as with someone who is as fast as he is. Although he only finished P10, he followed it up qualifying P3, being the fastest of the medium runners in qualifying. And then once he cleared the two soft runners of Kai and Midnight last week, it was really, he really just said cheerio to everyone. In the end, finishing 10 seconds clear of everyone, and again, and driving what we come to expect from him in the feature race, which is a very clean, uh, oh, excuse me, a very clean, very fast drive. Although I would assume if you would like to go even further ahead in the championship, would have to do a bit better in the sprint race, which we saw today. After Callum, we have Hartman. A slightly what I can only describe as being a slightly disappointing round last week for Hartman. Although the pace was there at times, only finishing P9 in the sprint race, followed by qualifying P8 to finish P7 in the feature race. Obviously not quite what you would want, and we saw quite a few points within the feature race him picking up penalties. Um, Although we say he finished P7, he was very close to being close to the likes of Pedro and Kai, as both of them were within 5 seconds up the road from him when he finished. So it's a story of possibly what could have been if he didn't pick up so many penalties. And after Hartman, we have Swizzy. It was an impressive return from the season one champ last week, finishing second in the sprint and third in the feature race. With obviously him being a highlight reel in the sprint race, should I say, overtaking quite a few drivers to finish in that second place. Um, And then I'm sure tonight he'll certainly be looking at challenging for more podiums fight. Maybe we saw a slightly uh, unrepresentative sprint race from Suzuki, and I'm sure he'll certainly be looking to prove a lot more of his pace that he does have within the feature race. And finally, on to KD Kai. Though unable to compete in the sprint race, Kai bounced back to secure pole position in qualifying. And although the tyre wear on the GTR was quite severe, he still managed to finish P6 in the feature race. I can almost guarantee he'll be looking at trying to secure at least one podium here tonight, Sarah.
He'll be on all around the podium if he can keep out of the walls of the death chicane. But yeah, thank you very much, Kirk, for running through the other half of the grid tonight. And yeah, it was quite a battle of two halves last week. Some drivers, not having the greatest of times around Watkins Glen, but others, having brilliant races. For example, Coach, getting his first sprint win, and in the qualifying session as well, a lot of people, qualifying higher up than usual. So yeah, I'm sure. I think we heard from Swizzy last week that if he's happy to get on the podium here. It's a track that he doesn't drive too much, and in that car which is very difficult on both fuel and tyre wear, he'll be very happy with a a podium, and if he qualifies in second, it sets him up very nicely for that podium drive. But just joining lap number 5 of qualifying, we'll just give you a few track facts around for the Dragon Trail Seaside. So the track itself is 5.2 kilometres or 3.2 miles long, with 17 turns in total. Dragon Trail Seaside is a fictional circuit that first appeared in GT Sport. It is set in Croatia, and it's, as you can tell, located along the seaside, hence the name. But the track is essentially a triangular shape, but it contains hidden depths that also adds to its complexity, as we've seen. Most notable of which is that it's set on a hillside, so there is a steep incline and decline in certain portions of the track. Also, between the 3 hairpins that make up the points of the triangle, there are 3 different styles of chicane that must be approached very differently. So, for example, the bus stop style chicane in the 3rd sector has been referred to by the name chicane of death, also known as death chicane, by the community. Or, in our community, we usually call it the death chicken, as I alluded to earlier. This is due to the unpredictability and high-speed nature of the corner, which can lead to disastrous results if not navigated properly, especially due to the lack of runoff area. But what do you think of a Seaside, Kirk? Is it kind of a personal favourite or a track that you drive much?
I can't really say that I drive this track a lot. As I'll be honest, I don't really like it that much. Um, call call me what you like. I'm just not a big fan of the chicane, which really sours the track, uh, in my opinion. Um, although other than the death chicane, I do believe it is quite an enjoyable track to drive. Obviously being on a hillside, there's a lot of undulation within the circuit. Obviously, as we go through the compression, such as turn 2 and 3, you can really feel the grip increase as the car compresses, and the tires compress into the track. Um, Again, and as you go further around lap, the middle sector is a sector that, if you nail, feels absolutely fantastic, and especially if you can nail it and really be able to carry the momentum through. You certainly it certainly feels rewarding to drive. As I say, it's just that left chicane, that faster flick left, flick right, that I really do not enjoy, Sarah.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult to navigate properly. And right, 100% of the time, like I say, 9 times out of 10, it's fine. That one time, it ends in tears. But we're enjoying the final lap. We've currently got Callum in pole position with only a tiny gap to Swizzy just behind, who've both pulled in the pits. McManley in 3rd. But everyone, I believe, has finished qualifying. And afterwards, we will just run you. I'll let Kirk run through the order of the feature race tonight. Yeah, it looks like, having a quick glance, looks like we got some fast drivers towards the top end of the grid, and obviously, Hartman carrying on that good. Well, I mean perfect. Trajectory from the sprint race, qualifying in P6. So setting himself up again very nicely for the feature race to have some battles with the drivers around him.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a driver of note. I just want to say well done to LB Lewis, qualifying P5 as well, and probably a lot higher up than where he's possibly expecting to qualify. He's certainly driven very well there, and I would say well done to Swizzy as well. Only 3/10 off a Callum, and on the medium tyre, Sarah. Swizzy could certainly look like it could be challenging. Possibly Callum today, although I don't want to speak too soon.
Yeah, hopefully, we'll have a challenger of for Callum, as like you say, last week in that feature race he was in a world of his own, finishing multiple seconds in front of the driver behind, and having quite a fun time in the feature race. But unfortunately, another one to add. Obviously, Pedro getting disconnected from the lobby does mean that he will start from the back of the grid in the feature race, and obviously that a big shame. And obviously Pedro enjoys this track, so obviously to not get qualifying for technical reasons, it means that he's got a few battles on his hands, shall we say, to get up into a good finishing position. But Kirk, if you want to take it away, we'll run through the grid before we get the feature race started.
Absolutely. So, leading us off for the feature race tonight, we have Callum out-qualified Swizzy by 0.3 of a second. Obviously, Callum starting on the soft tyre and Swizzy on the medium. Then a further 0.6 behind Swizzy, we have Mac, who claims our third and final bonus point for P3. Then P4, we have Dark Lord. Again, Evie was also a medium tyre runner, so although he's only just missed out on that bonus point, I'm sure he'll be very happy with P4. After that, LB Lewis, probably my star, this person I'd give the highest praise to in qualifying on that medium tyre. Or soft tyre, should I say, qualifying P5. Hartman, again, a very impressive qualifying in P6. Coach, 7th. Midnight Icer, maybe a little bit disappointing at where he qualified in the end, P8. Then we have Ripping the Terran in P9. And two drivers, unfortunately not certain of lap time, Caden Kine 10th and Pedro in 11th. Sarah.
Thank you very much for running through the order for me. And yeah, unfortunately, obviously, the two drivers just behind not getting a qualifying time set, which does mean they've got a challenge on their hands, especially around Seaside, making up a few positions which they would have hoped to qualify in. But before we get into the race, I'll just give you a quick overview. We'll go back to last week again in the land of the USA in Watkins Glen in the feature race. Like we've alluded to, Callum, probably on the consecutive wins now, it's off the charts. But Callum coming home in first place after what he said. He didn't know the track that well before racing it. But, I mean, we couldn't tell. He was in a league of his own, showing that practice makes perfect. And, he set a few laps, and that was all it took to learn the track. But coming home in second, like I said earlier, McManley picking up another second place finish, which did get him quite a handful of points and promoted him into third. But then we had Swizzy again in P3. So Swizzy and McManley, keeping the podium warm. But it was close between everyone last week, and I'm hoping obviously today it will be just as close. But I believe we're getting ready for the feature race. But yeah, unfortunately, Katie the Kind not set in a lap time for reasons. But I'm sure he'll be looking to climb as much as he can.
Yeah, I certainly expecting Katie Kai to be able to pull off a few overtakes today to maybe obviously off the start, maybe obviously being back down towards the back, you may have to be a little bit aggressive off the start to try and not lose too much time to the front runners. I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't expect Katie Kai to finish within the top 5, or maybe even challenge for a podium. Say if he can keep it clean through the chicane, and the likes of Swizzy, Mac, or Dark Lord possibly hit the wall at the chicane. There's no reason why Katie Kai couldn't possibly finish on the podium, Sarah.
Yeah, never say never, and we all know how fast he is, and potentially he might be thinking of a slightly alternative strategy to someone else, which could promote him quite high, or like you say, if not on the podium. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm excited to see what all the drivers can do, really, as we get ready for 38 laps of Dragon Trail. 38 laps and 38 times of trying to get that chicane spot on. But, hoping and praying for all the drivers that they don't pick up too much damage going in that chicane. But hopefully it'll be a kind of a little bump, saying that greeting the barrier, but not too damage, and hopefully not race-ending damage. But
Absolutely.
I'm excited. A track I know.
Yeah.
This is one of the tracks that I personally like racing. Obviously, I've driven quite a few races around here and always enjoyed it because of the different kind of sectors. But we are getting ready for the race. I will put the bits on for you. But if you want to run us through.
Absolutely, Sarah. As we see Callum lining up in first place here today. As we get ready for the start, is crucial to get a good start here. Does he get a good start? He does get off quite well. Maybe not as well as he would have wanted compared to Swizzy and Mac. As we can see, Swizzy through. So is Mac as they're running 3 wide in down towards the first corner. Swizzy taking the lead with Mac and Dark Lord going side by side. Dark Lord trying to hold it around the outside into second corner. Gets the racing line for turn to 3. Maybe a little bit squirrely there, but we see Mac losing the position there to Callum on the exit of turn 3. As we see him possibly losing another position to LB Lewis going heading into this right-hander. He just manages to hold on for now. LB Lewis not quite being able to take full advantage of that traction on the soft tyre to be able to take it to Matt Manley. As we see at the front, Callum has also lost a position to Dark Lord as well, Sarah. As we see looking towards down through the pack, KDK made in quite a few positions off the start of this race. Up into P7 now, looking to challenge Hartman possibly towards the end of this lap. Is Caden Cow possibly look down the inside there? Can he get the traction? That GTR maybe not the greatest car on the traction as they run side by side. Heading in towards the death chicane. Hartman thinking better of it and just lifting off for now. Is everyone through cleanly on the first time? No, we're not. We've got Hartman is crashed on the first time of going through the death chicane, picking up severe damage. Has anybody else picked up damage from that? Yes. Midnight ISO has also got severe damage from Hartman's slight incident at the death chicane. Other than that, Sarah, we're all clear on the first lap.
Yeah, unfortunately, just missed the replay on that. But yeah, it did look quite a spectacular crash coming out of that chicane there, which looks like it did catch a few drivers out in the likes of Midnight and Hartman. But it's I suppose it's that thing now. It's do I pit, repair the damage, or do I stay on track? If that on track position. But we all know damage. It doesn't bode well for pace, and it will kind of see them drop through the pack. But yeah, interesting to see if they're sticking with their original strategy, or they're gonna pit and repair that damage.
Absolutely. Also, interestingly enough, Callum losing positions to both Dark Lord and Swizzy will not do his race any favours. Obviously, Callum qualified on the soft tyre, being behind the two medium runners, certainly early on, would not help his results out that much, Sarah.
No, it's kind of obviously puts him slightly on the back foot. He was in pole position, but off the start, losing a few positions, putting him on the back foot and giving a little challenge to him. You see, if he can get back onto that top spot of the podium, which I'm sure he'll be trying his best to. But yeah, just on board with McManley, going a little bit wide onto the grass, which did see him lose a few positions to KD the Kai and LB Racing, as we saw KD the Kai going into that inside line. I'll try and get a replay of that. But yeah, out of the tunnel, KD the Kai goes onto that inside line, side by side with LB Racing, and just simply keeps it narrow, getting that move done. LB Racing tucking in behind, and over the start finish straight they go for lap number 2. No, 3 actually.
Absolutely. As going into turn 1, KDK did have to defend just a little bit from LB Lewis. But in the end, LB Lewis couldn't really mount too much of a comeback against Katie Kite, and Katie Kite is now off on the way. And always
Oh,
LB Lewis going very wide in the exit of the corner there, touching the grass and looping the car round. Obviously, after such a good start, is probably not going to do his race any favours as it drops him down to the back of the pack behind Midnight ISO, Sarah.
yeah, and McManley very, very close to being collected there. So I'm sure McManley will be taking a few deep breaths in now, counting his lucky stars that he didn't get collected by LB Racing there.
Yeah, I was just looking again at the front there. Dark Lord getting very wide on the exit of the right hand as you run down the hill. Um, and then again, Callum looking looks like he's getting very close to that wall as well. Possibly not the greatest of exits, which could possibly put him under threat from Katie the Kai heading down the next straight, Sarah.
Yeah, Katie the Kai is definitely, a little bit of nitrous boost there. He's got on the back of Callum pretty quickly. But does that obviously kind of fall into his favour that he knows Callum just in front and maybe not feeling, 100% confident around this track as opposed to the other tracks we've seen on the calendar so far. But, 38 laps around here, I wouldn't be feeling confident either. We've seen so far that the curbs, if you get on them and you're spinning, it's very hard to collect it. We've seen, multiple kind of crashes into the chicane barriers already, and it just goes to show that it's very easy to spin or to lose traction around this track. As we see someone already in the pits, I believe. Maybe potentially repairing that damage and trying to go again.
We've seen both Midnight ISO and Hartman coming to the pit. Hartman at the end of the first lap after picking that damage up, and Midnight ISO at the end of the third lap, pitting. Decided he's losing too much time with the damage and deciding to pit for repairs and taking a set of softs, Sarah.
Yeah, so obviously damage having to causing a little bit of trouble for their strategies. As we see Pedro and Rip and December going side by side into that first part of the Death Chicken. Pedro very brave there to keep his foot on the accelerator and to get past Rippin, who, didn't want to fight going side by side into the Death Chicken. So, lets Pedro through, and I'm sure he'll be trying to ask or trying to get that position back. But yeah, very brave move by Pedro there, who got it done and damage free, which is good. But
yeah, sometimes to make an overtake right here, you have to be a bit aggressive, a bit brave, stick it where possibly nobody else would like to, Sarah.
yeah, I mean, as you can see from Pedro, he got the move done, and Colt, ripping Deterrin off guard, which, like you say, some moves you just have to do. You have to catch those drivers out. You have to make them look in the mirror and think, oh, there's a Porsche there, or there's another car there. But yeah, these brave moves, we like them. So keep doing it, Pedro. And yeah, obviously for him missing out qualifying to already pick up three to four places is pretty good within the first 5 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously both Pedro and Katie Kai starting down towards the back, well, starting at the back of the pack. Obviously, Katie Kai up to 4, Pedro up to P7. Obviously, keeping their noses clean, keeping out of trouble, and doing quite well, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, Katie the Kai coming all the way from 11th place into 4th place within the first kind of, it's not even a quarter of the race yet. It's 5 laps in, and he's already made up so many positions. So it just goes to show, I think you were right. A podium drive is definitely on the cards for today.
Yeah, it's just about keeping the consistency. So we've maybe seen a lack of this season with Katie Kai. All he needs to do is just keep it clean. Make sure not to make any simple mistakes. There's no reason why he wouldn't be within this front battle, Sarah.
Yeah, as obviously we see a little group forming from the Dark Lord all the way down to Katie the Kai. And I can just obviously see Mac 4 seconds behind. He'll be looking to close that gap and to get involved in this podium battle. But I've got to say, all drivers doing remarkably well so far. And obviously, first couple of laps, it's just about settling into the race, seeing how the other drivers are settling in as well. If the chicane's causing them a little bit of trouble, some drivers like Pedro can take advantage of that, making some very brave moves stick. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of drivers will be testing the limits of the track, seeing how fast they can take a few corners. As I can just see from on board of Katie the Kai, Callum and Dark Lord. Very nose to tail here. And the back of that McLaren, very drifty coming out of the chicane. And Callum pulls onto the inside line. Katie the Kai gets a great run off onto the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Callum maybe going a little bit deep into the final corner, maybe forcing Katie Kai to go even wider than maybe he would have liked to. But that is compromised Callum's exit onto the main pit straight as Katie Kai looks to the inside of Callum. Callum gonna hold the outside line into this first little kink to get the inside line for the second corner, which is the racing line and the preferred line to hold position. There's not really much KD the Kai can do from there, Sarah.
No, Callum defending pretty well so far. But yeah, just goes to show he lost quite a lot of time to the Dark Lord there, coming out of that, the chicane. So potentially a weakness for Callum there.
I was just saying, it looks like on the exit of that corner, one of those previous corners, Dark Lord maybe ran just a little bit wide as that entire gap he slightly built out is now come crumbling down, and Callum is closing, just not closing fast enough to possibly look at a move heading into this corner, Sarah.
No, unfortunately, obviously, but gets the band back together, as they say. Gets these three racing very close into the chicane here, and all three of those drivers look like they got very close to that barrier. Obviously, I think all damage free at the moment, but yeah, it looks like Dark Lord is quite strong through that chicane there, being able to kind of stick it and at quite fast, which extends that gap only a tiny bit to the two behind him. But yeah, this battle for the podium spot is definitely heating up, and I think we getting ready for this battle all race long, as we've got 30 laps still to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I need to say is just how difficult it is to get that chicane right, especially when following another car in front where you can't quite see your turning point, which can make it very difficult to be able to to get that chicane accurately and fast, Sarah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've multiple times of racing this track. It's one of the hardest, I think, chicanes to get right. Just because if you don't get it right, you're going head first into a barrier, which as I mentioned in the track facts, can be can dampen the results. As I was just on board with Lewis looking behind, and Katie the Kai seemed to have lost quite a lot of time to Callum there, as Callum now looks like he's on the back of Lewis, ready to fight for that second place again.
Yeah, I didn't quite catch what happened with Katie Kai, but obviously a mistake easily done around this track, or maybe his tyres are just going off a little bit. But no matter, Katie Kai, as long as Katie Kai is still within touch of this front pack, I don't think there's really too much to worry about right now. Although I see Swizzy maybe ever so slightly starting to break away that gap now, 2.7 seconds from the cars behind. Maybe is this Swizzy's race already, Sarah?
Could be, but I'm not going to say just yet. I think it might be a bit too early to tell. We all know that there's 29 laps to get that chicane right. So, if if you can get it 100% right, I'm sure he'll be very happy about that. And like I said, going into the race, he was very happy if he could just get a podium here. So, but I think Swizzy kind of selling himself a little bit short there. We all know that he's more than capable of getting a win round here, but it's all about how that Lexus treats him. As we all know, it's a very difficult car strategy wise, and obviously driving wise with that tyre wear and the fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. Possibly not quite. Maybe not quite the card Swizzy maybe wanted to choose for this season. Obviously, taking something new for this year to give himself a little bit of a challenge. But he's certainly living up to the challenge of the Lexus today, Sarah.
Yeah, he looks like he's just simply enjoying the drive around the seaside track. Maybe we never know. Maybe he's looking out to the sea, seeing that beautiful view and enjoying it.
Absolutely, as we see the first of our front runners to pit, being the Dark Lord himself, Sarah.
Yeah, potentially getting off of those worn tyres and deciding now's the time, maybe go for an undercut on a few of the drivers. But does seem quite an early pit stop from the
Yeah,
Dark Lord
absolutely.
there.
Especially considering the fact that so people on the soft tyres haven't even stopped yet. So Callum and Kai both have not stopped yet. So a little bit interesting there, Sarah.
Yeah, but we all know, like you said in your driver overview, Dark Lord is definitely one to pick that alternative strategy, which sometimes does play into his hand. And hopefully, it will do the same again today. It's always a pleasure to speak to the Dark Lord and get his opinion and his POV from the race. So I'm sure he'll be thinking in the back of his mind that if he can undercut a few drivers here, especially if damage may cause pit stops to be that slight bit longer than normal, that he could really capitalise here and get on the podium again.
Absolutely. Obviously, after doing three, after getting three feature race podiums in a row, obviously last week we saw him not quite enjoy Watkins Glen, finishing P5. I'm sure he will certainly be challenging to try and get on the podium here tonight. Although maybe that tyre just maybe a little bit too much to overcome tonight. As we've seen him coming out of the pits behind ripping the tearing,
Oh
which
no!
could.
We've had a disconnect from Pedro, which does mean that it promotes ripping the Terran back into that 7th place. And I was just on board with Coach, and I could just see Pedro in the background, gearing up to fight Coach. So unfortunately, obviously technical difficulties for Pedro tonight, which does see him disconnect. Unfortunately.
Be in, yeah, unfortunately, obviously you never like to see that. Obviously unfortunate to have internet issues which can cause people to drop out. We saw it a few weeks ago with Evo struggling with internet issues. We certainly saw it last season as well with Louis also having some internet problems. Unfortunately, it happens, and I'm sure we look forward to having Pedro come back stronger next week.
Oh, 100%. Hopefully, back to normal next week for Pedro, and hopefully, technical difficulties. We've all had our fair share, and we all know how annoying they can be, especially when racing. So, yeah, unfortunately, obviously tonight, not being able to get some points, but yeah, I'm sure Spa next week. It's a track that I know Pedro has raced quite a few laps around, both on GT7, GT Sport, F1 racing. So I'm sure it's a track that will play into his skill set, and he'll be able to make up for the points missed tonight.
Absolutely. Although interesting, I just want to make a note of something. Although Callum come out behind Midnight ISO, he hasn't really been able to make much inroads or mini make much time in towards midnight ice. Obviously, midnight ice are picking up damage after Hartman had that little incident on the first lap. So pitting at the end of lap three, Callum not really be able to close that gap up, Sarah.
No, not just yet. Sticking with Midnight, who is also in the McLaren. So yeah, maybe just biding his time, get onto that sector which is nice and flowy, and you're able to pass a car side by side. But yeah, obviously we know Midnight had to stop a little bit earlier because of damage, but tyres looking good at the moment, so hopefully. I mean, I don't know. Midnight might move out of Callum's way because he potentially might obviously know that it's not his fight at the moment, but it might be towards the end of the race. But it depends. Like you say, Callum not too close, but not too far away either.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll also be interesting where Swizzy, well, I say battle for the lead. It'll be interesting to see where Swizzy comes out compared to the likes of the Dark Lord and Callum, as we certainly see right now. Last on the previous lap, the Dark Lord Louis setting the fastest lap of the race of being a 36.8. It'll be interesting to see how far possibly behind Swizzy's going to come out compared to Louis, Sarah.
Yeah, and just because obviously the undercuts, if they do work, they are quite powerful. So potentially the Dark Lord pitting early and being the first one of our front runners to pit might come as a benefit for him later on in the race. But yeah, I mean Swizzy, he's got a gap of around 8 seconds, so and looks like he's just on the back of Hartman as well. So I'm sure he'll be thinking in the back of his mind about a strategy, as that left front has definitely seen some better days, and I'm sure he'll be starting to struggle a little bit with traction, especially coming through that chicane there. So we might see him pitting shortly. But yeah, I mean, it's quite fine. I think obviously Dark Lord could potentially come out in front of Swizzy when he does pit, but it'll be very close.
Sorry to interrupt you there. I was just seeing that Dark Lord make the move on coach up the inside of that tight right hander just before the death chicane. That obviously allowing Dark Lord to get a bit of clear air now to be able to go and attack, make full use of those soft tires.
Yeah, and obviously already getting a 2 second gap on coach, who I'm just gonna have a look. Oh, he's actually doing pretty well on tyres. Normally we see coach in that Supra, it's very tough on tyre wear, so he's still got about a quarter life in all four tyres, which I'm sure coach will be very happy about. And yeah, obviously we've had a move on Midnight from Callum as well. Callum getting in front of Midnight, but the two McLarens still relatively close to each other on the track, and I'm sure Midnight will be looking to follow Callum through the pack. But obviously his strategy a little bit kind of off kilter now because of that early pit stop.
If I'm no Midnight, I'm sure he would have taken into account the possibility of picking up damage early on. Um, Obviously, starting on the medium tire, he now does not have to use said medium tire again. And now taking the second stint of softs, he has satisfied the rule of doing two different um, compounds of tires. So we could possibly see him run all softs to the end to just go maximum pace error.
We could do, and we all know he's not. He's not shy of going aggressive with multiple soft tire stops. But yeah, I'm sure he'll be trying to make his way through the pack, and like I say, trying to follow Callum if he can. But we also have Swizzy and McMunley into the pits, which does promote the Dark Lord into first place overall.
Yeah, absolutely. As we expected to see, the Dark Lord taking the lead of this race from Swizzy. Obviously, Dark Lord taking less fuel at his last pit stop compared to the other front runners of Callum in KD the Kai. And it'll certainly be interesting to see how far he can go into this race. Obviously, try and take full advantage of those soft tyres. Current, he has about a 20-second gap to Callum in third place, but obviously Callum taking a full tank of fuel and running deeper into this race on a set of medium tyres, Sarah.
Yeah, and we all know that Callum does look after his tyres quite well. And he's doing that remarkably well at the moment. You know, looking after his tyres. He's only come in recently, but we know with the high tyre wear that it doesn't take long for the rubber to get off of those tyres. But yeah, I mean, obviously KD the Kai 8 seconds back, and Swizzy obviously just coming out just behind KD the Kai. So I don't know. It's a bit too early to call our final podium. Obviously, we're nearly halfway through the race now, but I mean, all good drives from all the drivers at the moment, and they look like they're having a difficult but also quite a nice chilled race.
Absolutely. Um, It'd be interesting to see how it all like closes up towards the end of this race. Obviously, currently Swizzy on I think I believe it's 5 lap pressure tyres from the likes of Hayden the Kai and maybe not quite Callum. I think Callum hit a lap before Kai. So 6 lap pressure mediums compared to Callum, and then 5 laps compared to Kai. So it certainly see if Susie can use that full advantage of those fresher tyres to be able to close that gap up, Sarah.
Yeah, and he looks like he's already kind of nearly on the back of KD the Kai here, and only that gap down to 1.4 seconds. But you know, it's still possible for the win, as we know. Obviously, it's the first stop of many for quite a few people. But we'll keep an eye on this battle here. I was trying to think back to last week. I remember obviously we talked to Swizzy briefly when he did pop into the podium room, and wasn't kind of necessarily looking forward to Dragon Trail, but was, you know, considering only a possibility of a podium. But you know, so far, I think he should be, you know, very proud of his race so far. Don't you think, Coke?
So I think we saw it the other with Eva where he said, "Oh, this could be a damage limitation round," and then proceed to absolutely dominate the event. So maybe just maybe he wasn't. Maybe he knew he would do quite well on it. Maybe he's just playing a little bit of mind game, Sarah.
Maybe, you know, but install you know, a little bit of confidence in other drivers. You know, potentially that they can beat him, but you know, keeping his cards close to his chest, and he knows that he's got a strategy in mind that he wants to follow, and it's basically go 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 from lights out to the finish. So, coach, I just heard coach coming in with 1% fuel, cutting it very fine indeed, but manages just about to pull back into the pits to get on a new set of softs and pick up some fuel.
Absolutely. This strategy must have done him quite well as he comes out well ahead of ripping the tearing and to the likes of Midnight ISO. It'll certainly be interesting if he does do what he usually does and do one less pit stop compared to everybody else. It will certainly be interesting to see where how high up he can finish there if barring he has the pace. But it certainly seemed like he had the pace on the medium tire, so there's no reason why he shouldn't have the pace on the soft.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'll be, you know, looking to continue this pace. But as we look behind, we obviously have Midnight, who has decided to come in again to pick up some more fuel and another set of soft tyres. So I think you're on the right lines with Midnight Kirk picking up, another set of softs, knowing that he doesn't have to do the tyre roll as he's already gone on the mediums and on the softs using those two compounds. So we could potentially see him come in again, pick up another set of softs and go to the end. But yeah, obviously just unfortunate. I think this strategy would have worked perfectly if he didn't pick up that damage within the first couple of laps.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was more of unavoidable damage. Obviously, seeing Hartman crash, blocking the track just a little bit, and for Midnight, it was just a bit of a wrong place, wrong time, and just a bit unfortunate to where picking up that damage after coming into contact with Hartman, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously, it's never nice to see a car pulling out in front of you. Obviously, mid spin. So to avoid that is very difficult, and unfortunately, Midnight just getting caught up in that action. But as we saw obviously earlier with McManley just narrowly avoiding LB Racing, it just goes to show that with the drivers being so close to each other, when these things do happen, it is very hard to avoid the spinning car.
Mm. Interestingly enough, out at the front with Louis pitting, from the last time I checked into that gap, um, he's actually pulled out a bit more time compared to Callum. That gap now up at about 21 seconds. So it certainly seems that the Dark Lord has the pace here tonight, Sarah.
Yeah, he definitely does, and looks to pick up some more fuel, go on a set of softs, so potentially going for an aggressive strategy as well. But yeah, keeping an eye on this battle as well. The gap between Katie the Kite and Swizzy has gone down to around half a second. Oh, as we see Katie the Kite nearly lose it there, but just manages to hold on. But it does let Swizzy through without kind of any troubles. But unfortunately, Katie the Kite saving it, and was very good to save it, because that looked like if it was about to spin, that he would have gone straight onto the grass and into the barrier.
Also, a very good, I just want to say, a very good drive from McManley as well. McManley, obviously, we saw him running just a little bit behind during the first stint, but he's been able to close that gap up to Key the Kai and Swizzy to just over a second now, Sarah.
Yeah, and he'll obviously be keeping an eye on this battle just in front of him between the GTR of Katie the Kai and the Lexus of Swizzy, knowing obviously that last season, well, within this one shot here, we have last season's 1, 2, and 3. So we all know that how fast all three of these drivers are. So they'll be looking to, reignite a few battles from season 1, and hopefully we'll see some battles between these three.
Maybe even a possible outlier for a possible podium finish tonight, Sarah. McManley certainly would is not someone we don't see on the podium quite often. Is usually always up towards that area and fighting, especially in the sprint race.
Yeah, and I think unfortunately, obviously, in the sprint race, didn't probably go to McManley's liking, picking up some damage with a collision with the Dark Lord, but he seems to have got better fortune in the feature race so far. Obviously, 20 laps in, got around 18 laps to go, and is on the back of Katie the Kai. So yeah, obviously, tale of two halves again for McManley. A little bit of obviously probably from his perspective, a disappointing sprint race, but looks like quite an exciting feature race for him today.
I'm sure he'd be licking his lips and possibly thinking of what can be, barring any big mistakes.
Yeah, as that gap between himself and Katie the Kite is less than half a second as they're about to go through that tricky chicane. So obviously, drivers, they'll be keeping an eye on their mirrors, knowing that a car is going quite fast behind them. It's, do I let off? Do I, just simply drive through the chicane as normal? Or do I put my foot down, risk, hitting a few walls and trying to build that gap,
Ooh,
but all very close
it's like
to.
Katie the Kai. Sorry, you go ahead, Sarah.
That's right. I was literally. We saw it at the exactly the same time. I saw the grass flick up, which indicated obviously Katie Kai getting a few tyres onto the grass, and McManley getting a good run into that first chicane, getting a good run on Katie the Kai, and promotes himself up into that podium spot. But
Mm.
Katie
Yeah,
the Kai quite close to him still.
yeah, absolutely. Obviously, again, another slight mistake from Katie Kai costing him another position and a valuable track position. Obviously not preferably what he'd like to have happen. But as long as he keeps in touch with the two drivers ahead, I'm sure he can certainly still make a move on them coming or in the closing stages of this race, Sarah.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm sure for Katie the Kai, although a few mistakes, a few, minor mistakes, not like he's crashing into a barrier everywhere. It's obviously, you know, a few times nearly losing the car and nearly, testing the excursions or the off track excursions, but picking up no damages yet, which puts him back in the fight with McManley and Swizzy. I think if he picked up damage, it'd be a completely different story. But in the distance, I can just about see the Dark Lord, who will be looking to catch this little group here and get back onto the podium if he can.
I'm absolutely sure. Well, his soft tires it certainly makes him the fastest driver of the four drivers in front of him, lapping about a 1.5 second quicker than Callum, about 8 tenths faster than Swizzy, 6 tenths faster than Mac, and then 1.8 seconds faster than Katie the Kive. So Louis is our fastest driver out on track right now, Sarah.
Yeah, and he definitely looks it. That I can see that gap is working its way down. It's down under 4 seconds now. So I don't think it's going to take him long to get back into this battle. But I can't. I can't. I think the last couple of laps or the last kind of 10 laps, we're going to see quite a battle between the top five, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. As everyone who is currently running alternative strategy compared to each other, as they all almost I say converge on each other towards the end of this race, surely anyone can take this. Anyone of the current top five could possibly steal a podium position, Sarah.
Yeah, as obviously in that first stint we saw Swizzy with an 8 second gap, and now in the second stint we have Callum with an average of an 8 second gap as well. So it just goes to show, with these different strategies, that 1 minute you're in pole, next minute you're fighting for a podium spot completely. But it just goes to show that as we join Callum as he was drifting through that first chicane. But yeah, I'm excited
Obviously,
for these last few laps.
obviously not quite what you want to do for that chicane. Obviously, not the fastest way through it. Um,
No, but definitely earn
and I,
some performance points, coming out of that
style
chicane
points,
in
yeah.
style.
Absolutely. Certainly, yeah, as you were saying, towards the end of this race, yeah, it'll certainly be interesting as everybody all starts to, so as I said before, converge on each other. As we see Hartman getting lapped now. Um, Obviously Hartman on fresh soft tires, so if he has the pace, I guess he doesn't have to give way if he has the pace for it. But obviously, um, maybe not quite what Mac Manley quite wants, Sarah.
Yeah, I was just judging that. I was gonna say, does Hartman, let McManley through before the chicane? But I don't know. Maybe a wise idea to keep where he is through that chicane and let McManley do the work in these first few corners of the next lap.
Well, I believe Hartman being on the fresh softs might actually be quicker than the people around him. Obviously, they're all on very worn tires around him, so I suppose if he's quicker, you don't have to give way. Sarah.
No, if he's still got that, still got the pace, and we all know that he's got the pace as he just won the sprint race. But obviously, again, a lot of drivers having a tale of two halves tonight, having a really good sprint race, but then in the feature race getting having a very difficult time, especially Hartman. Obviously, 1 minute winning the sprint race, then being lapped. I'm sure it's a high and then a low, but he looks like he's still got the pace that he did in the sprint race, and looks like he's pretty much keeping with Swissy at the moment, which is making McManley's life a little bit harder as Hartman does go a little bit wide there. But yeah, unfortunately, what could have been for Hartman, battling with these 3-4 position.
Absolutely. As it looks like Hartman has decided he cannot get past Swizzy, so he's letting Matt Manley go through. And in other words, the Dark Lord is now on the back of Katie the Kai, Sarah.
Yeah, the two GTRs are battling it out. But yeah, I think I've watched Louis on board through the chicane, and he seems quite strong through there. Not slowing up too much, not being too wary. So I think this will come in handy. With KD trying to fight KD the Kai. He's can go through that chicane with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more trust in the car. So hopefully, that gap down to around 0.6. It could be a battle of the GTRs for a few more laps. But just having a quick look at the minimap, everyone else seems to be quite spaced out, enjoying their own little bits of the track respectively. And yeah, unfortunately, obviously, we're a man down in Pedro, who I'm sure would have loved to be racing around with these guys.
Hartman has just hit the wall, possibly taken too much curb on the inside of that little right flick in the first sector. I'm not sure if you could possibly get a rewind of that, Sarah.
I can
Or
try
if
my
it,
best. Just it might be a bit too late, but we will have a go. Oh, I think I might be a bit too late to have catched that. But yeah, did it look like he got quite close to the people lapping around him. So yeah, just goes to show. Obviously, he was a bit close, got a bit of damage there, but still managed to get out of the way. Although, somewhere in all of that, we've missed the Dark Lord getting a move done on KD the Kai. So maybe, potentially, KD the Kai falling a little bit into Hartman's kind of way, and he got involved in that, which did make him lose a little bit of time to the Dark Lord, who looks like he's already on the back of McManley fighting for position.
absolutely. Obviously, this will be crucial for his race, as he needs to not be held up by the people on the much older medium tyre. As although his softs are starting to wear out now, he still needs to try and take full advantage of them, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, the time to strike is now, being on a slightly fresher set of tyres compared to McManley, who he's just overtaken. McManley's left side tyres have definitely seen better days, and the fuel obviously flashing red as well. So on one side, low fuel, McManley will be going fast, but on another side, obviously, no traction on that left hand side will be causing a little bit of issues for McManley, with KD the Kai right behind. So I'm sure McManley looking in those rear view mirrors, knowing that he's got a GTR in front of him and a GTR behind him. So in a little bit of a GTR sandwich, McManley is now.
That's interesting. Callum has took another set of mediums, Sarah.
Yeah, going long into the race with only around 12 laps to go. So looks like he's in it for the long haul, and potentially trying to make an undercut on the likes of Swizzy, the Dark Lord, McManley, and KD the Kai. So potentially going on a set of softs for not as long as the other drivers around him, but got a slightly fresher set of tyres, which should last him the distance of the race.
I believe if Louis gets to the end of next lap, to the end of lap 28, he could just go. He can take the set of softs to the end. I almost can't believe how fast this race has gone. Only was that 12 laps left? Yeah. So realistically, you could probably surprised actually, just maybe just slightly that Callum didn't take a set of softs to the end. Obviously, maybe 13. That's maybe been a little bit too much to ask, but it certainly seems a bit perplexing, so to speak.
Yeah, it does. Obviously, maybe potentially feeling that the medium tyres he's got a little bit more confidence on, as opposed to the softs, and just keeping on board with the Dark Lord, and he's managed to close that gap to Swizzy quite dramatically. You know, getting that gap down to just under a second, about to go into the chicane. So I don't know, potential mistake from Swizzy. I don't think so, but it looks like Dark Lord. You know, he's definitely turned on that nitrous button and getting very close to Swizzy here.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it looks like should be just a straight up battle between the two now to the end of this race between Swizzy and the Dark Lord. As we see Swizzy pitting this lap, the Dark Lord gonna go out for one more lap. Um, it's certainly it's certainly still anybody's race to see who can win here tonight, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think that's what we all love about the Nighthawk racing is that, you know, we try our best to predict, you know, the winners, the podium drivers, but it is very, very difficult to predict. You know, the drivers keeping us on our toes, you know, keeping us guessing. But I like it that way, you know. I like not knowing the final result. It's like, you know, Formula One at the moment. We all know who's more than likely to win. But, you know, not here at Nighthawk Racing. We never know who's going to win, which makes it that little bit more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see Swizzy coming out just behind Callum. However, Swizzy on them soft tyres, you've got a question: how long do you think Callum is going to be able to hold Swizzy behind, Sarah?
Yeah, obviously, two completely different strategies here. You know, Callum going on the slightly harder set of tyres out of the two, going more for, you know, I guess confidence and distance, where Swizzy's gone, no, I'm going on the softs, I'm going fast and pushing all the way to the end. But we all know that if Swizzy wants to, he'll try his best to overtake with probably in a few corners time. I know Swizzy doesn't like to wait around too much, so yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe Callum going on the mediums might be the wrong way to go about it with Swizzy on the softs, but you know, we never know. Maybe the soft set of tyres of Swizzy's might burn out that little bit quicker, as opposed to Callum's medium.
I say Callum, not to doubt Callum's racecraft. I'm sure he had a reason for it, and I'm sure he'll certainly show us the reason.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, as we see, obviously, the Dark Lord pitting, getting some fuel, getting a new set of tyres, which we should see the battle for that third place reignite in just a second, as McMahon is only 6 seconds behind. But yeah, it looks like it's heating up towards the last few laps between Callum and Swizzy. Swizzy going into that inside line out of turn one, going into the chicane. Callum on the inside here. Could we see a potential switch back between Swizzy and Callum? And we do, with Swizzy and Callum side by side going into this corner here.
This is
Swizzy's.
not.
Go ahead, go for it.
Sorry, Sarah.
It's alright.
I'm saying that is not a corner you really want to go side by side with, as Callum thinks better of it. Swizzy goes deep into the right hander, which allows um, Callum possibly to get a better run, which he can't quite take advantage of. Callum has to stay within touch between Swizzy around here, and he has to get a good run onto this straight, as this could possibly be Callum's last chance to be able to really attack Swizzy, as we see Swizzy it's gone. Swizzy's cleared them soft tyres were the way to go. Swizzy is now got that lead. So now it's game on between Louis to see if Louis can possibly catch and overtake Callum and then hunt down Swizzy, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously Louis not losing too much time with that latest pit stop, and it's still quite close between all three of the podium drivers and McManley. But yeah, obviously Swizzy with those soft set of tyres, he made that move stick, and he's already in the distance and trying to build that gap between himself and Callum going into the final 8 laps. But yeah, it just goes to show the soft tyres might not go the distance, but they definitely help for that pace. But I think the mediums, they will go the distance, and it's probably the preferred tyre for just simply traction and knowing that you got the traction within those last few laps. But it's a difficult challenge when the drivers around you are on those softer tyres, and obviously quite a lot faster as opposed to those medium tyres. But again, like you said, not doubting Callum's racecraft, he's super fast even on the mediums, so potentially still could be on the fight for a win, if not a second or third place.
Absolutely, Sarah. I would never count Callum out of a podium, especially when he's in second and people have got to overtake him to get that podium off him.
Oh yeah, he's a very good defensive driver as well. When he knows the distance between himself and the car behind, he will switch from attacking to defending quite quickly. And I'm sure the Dark Lord will put those defensive techniques, try and go through the defensive techniques, shall I say. But Callum will obviously be aware of the ever closing in Dark Lord in that GTR, who's had a really good race so far, don't you think, Kirk?
Absolutely. That that a Dark Lord has always struggled with tyre wear. To be challenging for second here is certainly something he would not be wanting would certainly not be shrugging his shoulders at, especially when he can finish in front of his championship rival, Callum. Uh, do you think this move could be very important for the championship, Sarah, to keep Callum within touch?
I think so. Yeah, obviously, if he can overtake Callum here. Oh, as we say that commentator's curse, the Dark Lord does get a little bit squirrely coming out of that corner, taking a lot of curb and a little bit of grass, which does bring McManley into the fight. But obviously that gap between himself and Callum growing to about 2 seconds now. Not what obviously the Dark Lord wanted there, and it just goes to show, you can drive that corner perfectly fine one lap, and then next lap taking a little bit too much curb can make the car very unpredictable.
Absolutely. Obviously, with this track, all it takes is just a little mistake, and it will just send you straight off into the wall. Yes, sir. Although you need to be brave to push limits to find the time. Obviously, we saw there maybe pushing just a little bit too much, and track snapping back just a little bit, Sarah.
Yeah, and obviously it just goes to show, when you do try and push as hard as you can, like you say, you can get on the curb, you can go a little bit wider, which loses him quite a lot of time. But we've still got 6 laps to go, and that gap's only 1.6, so it's definitely still possible. Obviously, he's on the softer tyres, but then he'll know that McManley again is only about 1 second behind him, so he can't make too many more mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just a littlest mistake could cost Louis, as we saw with Katie Kai earlier on in the race. Katie Kai obviously making 2 mistakes, well, 2 slight mistakes during this race, and lost positions to both Swizzy and McManley, Sarah.
Yeah, and I think that goes to show, how close. If that's a visualization of how close the drivers are, Normally it's when drivers make a major mistake they lose so many positions, but a few drivers making only minor mistakes that normally would go unnoticed, but because drivers are so close to each other, making a minor mistake does lose you a couple of positions.
Absolutely. Um, that's why it's so important to be clean and consistent. Obviously, um, I mean, we saw it attract all throughout the season where clean, consistent drives have been rewarded with good results. Obviously, Hartman comes to mind in his debut event at Kyoto. We saw quite a few races from midnight where good strategy has helped him finish high up in the pack. Um, we saw Coach, I mean, even Coach today, P6, although quite a ways away off from the top five battle, P6 is certainly nothing to be upset about, Sarah.
No, definitely not. I would be very, very happy indeed of a sixth place around here. Obviously, uh, especially, I mean, all drivers should be pretty proud of their finishing result around here, as it's a difficult track to get right 100% of the time. Um, so I think even Swizzy potentially even making a few mistakes himself, it just goes to show that no driver will get this track 100% right 100% of the time, and it goes to you know respecting the death chicane as we call it. It will bite back, and it will bite back when you least expect it. But as I join the battle for second, Callum, I think, making a bit of a mistake there, because that gap last time I saw wasn't that close.
Yeah, it certainly looks like Callum is coming under increasing amounts of pressure as this race comes towards the end, Sarah.
Yeah, it just goes to show whenever I pan to a different driver, it heats up at the front again. But I have to tell myself, stay with Louis. He capitalises on other people's mistakes. But yeah, I wonder obviously what went wrong with Callum's last lap there, because that gap was around probably just over a second and a bit. So yeah,
Right.
losing quite a lot of time.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, Sarah. It looks like Louis going for the move. He dives up the inside into turn two, maybe going a little bit deep, which could possibly allow Callum to get the cutback. Again, Louis on the exit there, just getting a little bit squirrely. Has Callum got anything to fight back with? It doesn't look like he has. That was in the end quite a simple move. Maybe catching Callum, maybe napping just a little bit as Louis was quite aggressive and late with that move into turn two, Sarah.
Yeah, as we saw earlier with Pedro as well, you got to strike when the driver least expects it, and yeah, catching Callum there, and already building that gap, just going to show those soft tyres uh, was a good move for Louis there, but also that brings McManley still in the battle. So could we see Callum out of the podium completely with only 4 laps to go, and McManley only being around a second behind?
I do believe it might be just a little bit borderline with Mac Manley. McManley's tyres are looking in quite a bit of ways worse shape than um Callum's. Although here he goes, he's looking up the inside in towards the final corner. He gets that inside line, but maybe possibly compromises his exit just a little bit going on to this front stretch. Callum taking that wider line, be able to carry more momentum onto the pit straight to allow um, more momentum and a better exit as Callum looks towards the inside of the little chink right. He is just in front now, heading in towards the first proper corner of the circuit, maybe going just a little bit too deep. But Manley has to stay behind for now, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm sure McManley will be smiling ear to ear with that battle between the two. A very late move by McManley into that last corner, but again, a very brave move by Callum into that first chicane. Sticking on it, sticking on the accelerator right until the bitter end when he needed to brake. But yeah, these two are very close to each other, and like you say, probably both tyres around about the same, I guess, performance levels. Obviously, we've got McManley on very worn softs, but we've then also got Callum on. I mean, they look pretty much in probably 3/4% life still in them. So, very close between the two tyres between these guys. It's just who will come out on top. But the gap down to 2/10. Could we see McManley going for that late move into the last corner again here?
And maybe not quite close enough to challenge into was this final corner this lap. But looking at them tyres, Mac Manley is probably looking on borrowed time. He needs to get past Callum at this lap and then defend if he wants to try and take this final podium position away from Callum. And here we are, we see McManley closing that gap. Is he going to look towards the inside? He doesn't. He thinks better of it. I've got to say, as he goes, takes a lot of apex, well, all that go on the right to try and get a good run in towards this little kink. But did he get a good enough run? Maybe not quite just enough as Callum defends into the kink. Is that going to compromise his run into the next corner? Not quite, as McManley again slots in behind Callum, Sarah.
Yeah, obviously we can definitely see here that Callum is switched to that defensive mode. He's closing the door to McManley, staying on that apex and staying on the racing line, making McManley work for it and work for that final spot on the podium.
There we are. As McManley is possibly closing in, maybe not quite quick enough as he says, "I'm here, Callum. Don't you forget about me just yet." And again, just slots in behind for now. So I do believe possibly McManley is running on borrowed time with those soft tyres, as it looks like they are running out, Sarah.
Yeah, definitely looks like they're wearing very quickly, shall we say. But only 2 laps left. Like you say, he's got a few laps to make that move stick. But obviously, Callum having a lot more traction on those medium tyres, as opposed to McManley on those very very worn soft set of tyres. But I wouldn't count him out just yet. As we go on to lap 37, again tucking in to Callum's slipstream, goes onto the inside. Gets quite a good run. He stays onto the outside of this corner here. Callum still on the inside, going into that first chicane. Very deep, which goes side by side, these two again here. Callum on the inside, McManley on the outside. As we go through the kink, McManley coming out ahead. But can he stay ahead? That is the question that is probably all on our minds right now, as Callum is only 2/10 behind, taking a lot of curb there, getting very, very, very squirrely coming out of there. But
Yeah,
go for it, Kirk.
it looked like as Callum tried to stick it or hold it the outer on the outside coming up towards the inside, it looked like he got a little bit squirrely on the exit of turn 3, which really cost him the momentum in the end to be able to challenge down towards the kink, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see that. Obviously, I was lost for words there because I was thought, is Callum going to lose it? But no, he holds on to it and saves the car from doing anything too drastic. But he's still with McManley. Only about 2 to 3 tenths in front is McManley. So Callum is definitely making him work for that 3rd place. But as these drivers go on to their last lap, I don't want to take my eyes off this battle here, but I know we're going to have to look at Swizzy in the moment as he comes across the line. But McManley, that left side is completely gone, as opposed to Callum, who's still got quite a lot of tyre life compared to McManley. So I think it's all going to come down to tyres on this last lap, Kirk.
Yeah, absolutely. As we see that both left-hand tyres are completely naffed, for a lack of a better term. Is he going to be able to hold on to this last lap? I don't think he is, Sarah. I think he's possibly going to lose out to Callum at some point on this lap, because at this point, every right-hander must feel like it's 1,000 meters in length. As we see him possibly blocking just a little bit on the exit of that corner from Callum. Then these right-handers are fine. It's when he has to chuck it back over to the left where he's really going to struggle, and this is where it's going to allow Callum to really close that gap up. Can Callum challenge in towards this next right-hander as we run down the hill? Matt Manley defends, pulls to the inside a little bit. and Callum cannot really can't not really find the space to get past. But can he get a better run on the exit? He has got a better run on the exit, which allows McManley and Callum to run side by side in towards the death chicane. Callum running slightly ahead for now. McManley has to back out because he's got nothing left to fight with. Can he get a better exit running up towards the final corner? So Callum is as far right as he can. Says, if you want to take this last podium position away from me, you are going to have to go the long way round. As we see, McManley has nothing left to fight with, though, in the end, and Callum is not really challenged into the final corner, which allows him to secure the final podium position and finish P3 ahead of McManley, Sarah.
I thought, maybe providing us with yet another photo finish there. But it's heating up quite far behind, but with Coach and Midnight also going side by side into the first part of the chicane. Who's going to come out on top between these two? Side by side, still through the chicane. We've not seen that at all tonight. So, Coach, just unfortunately did come off worse out of the two there. Getting a face full of a wall there, which promotes Midnight into 6th place. And I'm sure, Coach right at the end didn't want that to happen. He wanted to fight a little bit against Midnight. But, obviously going back to that fight for the 3rd place. Both drivers, waiting for that last lap, last corner for it all to unfold. But, I mean, what a battle it was between those two. It was very close to call, and I'm sure, even though McManley just lost out on that 3rd place, he'll be very happy, fighting with Callum, who, has picked up quite a few race wins. I'm sure, that's boosted McManley's confidence as well.
Absolutely. Nothing quite like it. Taking a victory, Swizzy returning to the top step of the podium. There's nothing quite like the feeling of that, Sarah.
Yeah, and like he said last week, he was just expecting a podium, and I think, he'll be delighted with a win around the Seaside, which is a difficult track. But yeah, everyone coming across the line. That race went remarkably quick. we were always, kept on our toes, kept guessing, and it made those 30 laps fly by. But I mean, it goes back, it's very true what they say. Time really does fly when you're having fun and when you're getting kept busy by these drivers, always having some good battles out on track. But as Kirk said, Swizzy taking the win yet again, and I think, Swizzy will be happy to return to that top step of the podium, shall I say. And it's a long-awaited return to that top podium step. And looking forward to speaking to him in the podium room. But before we get into the podium room, how did you feel the two races combined went, Kirk?
I think they were both fantastic races. We saw a lot of action throughout the race, and guess what we said did happen towards the end of the race, Sarah, where the entire grid there kind of converged on each other to battle out for the final podium position. As we saw, Callum obviously being the first one to pit, obviously couldn't defend from the Dark Lord, but in the end just managing to hold off at McManley. It's kind of a shame to see what happened from Katie Kai as well. So we saw Katie Kai up there quite a lot. But obviously we saw one or two slight mistakes from him, which in the end made him finish about 5 seconds off McManley. I think we saw a few good recovery drive. Well, we saw a good recovery drive from both Katie Kai and Midnight as well. Obviously, Katie Kai not qualifying, so it's towards the back, finishing P5. Although maybe you feel like he could have challenged for maybe a little bit more. Get a very good drive. Say with Midnight being caught up with that drama early on with Hartman, obviously that dropping him down towards the back of the field, and obviously come back strong to finish P6, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I think it goes back to tale of two halves for the drivers. A few drivers having a stronger sprint race than feature race, and then on the other hand, the drivers that didn't have a necessarily good sprint race had a fantastic feature race. So just goes to show, we it's always too close to predict who's going to win, and today it is Swizzy. But before we go and join the podium room drivers, if there's any drivers that do want to come along and have a chat, please do get yourself in the podium waiting room, as I let Kirk talk through the finishing order of tonight, if you could.
Absolutely, Sarah. So taking the maximum amount of points tonight for our feature race, we have Swizzy. Swizzy, well, I guess you could say at some points maybe didn't look as comfortable as it ended up being in the end. Obviously, we saw Louis leading quite a few laps of this race. In the end, Swizzy won by about 5.3 seconds in the end from the Dark Lord Louis. Louis drove a very good race today, bounced back very well from what maybe wasn't the greatest races in at Watkins Glen last week out to take a very good P2 finish. And then Callum, what can I say about maybe not quite where he wanted to finish in the end. It'd be interesting. It would be interesting to ask him if the plan was to always go medium tire for the last stint, or whether it was just in the spur of the moment to take a medium tire rather than a soft tire. And then McManley, maybe in the end he come in just a tiny bit too early for his soft tires. Obviously, pitting a lap earlier than Louis, causing his tires just to wear out just a little bit too much in the end to be able to truly defend from Callum to secure that final P3 finish. But what a battle between them two! Um, if I could, I'd watch it again every day. Um, and then P5, Katie Kai. Katie Kai obviously not qualifying. Very good recovery drive. I've already said about Katie Kai Midnight. Both in the end driving very good recovery drives to take P5 and P6 respectively. And Coach drove very well today. Um, Alternative strategy as always. Very impressive drive. Obviously, we see sometimes doesn't quite work out, such as at Watkins Glen, but it certainly worked out for him today to take P7. LB Lewis drove a very respectable round today, obviously qualifying P5 in the qualifying to finish P8. Not no, then maybe a little bit understated of how well he drove today. Obviously, we saw him do quite well in the sprint race, and he certainly showed us that he belongs in the top split. Other than that, we have Ripping the Terran on his return to the top split, finishing P9. Very respectable drive. We saw quite a few battles in the sprint race, maybe not so many in the feature race. Obviously, we never really expected him to be towards the front, but he certainly represented what the second split has to offer quite well here tonight. And Hartman, obviously, had a big crash early on and could never really get back into it. It could be a little bit of the damage caused him to pit early, which could have ruined his strategy he had going into this race. Um, but I'm certainly sure that he'll be trying to improve the finishing result in the feature race next week out at Spa. And then finally, our one and only DNF due to some slight internet problems is Pedro, who I'm sure we'll see come back better and stronger next week, Sarah.
100%. And yes, off to Spa next week, which is a track, quite a few of us have got experience on quite a few games. So I'm already excited for the sprint and feature race round there, and hopefully it will play into some people's skills. We could see some new faces onto the podium and potentially lifting that first place trophy up. But yeah, if we go and join the podium room, I believe there's no one waiting for us just yet, but you never know, we might have one pop in a second. But if there's any other drivers in lobby 1 that wants to come and have a chat with us, please feel free. But yes, excited for Spa next week, which, like I say, should provide with some good racing. But yeah, if there is anybody, come and feel free to chat. If not, we will. Oh, we do have Louis. I've spotted him. I'm dragging you in. There he is. We'll get him in nice and early. Hello, Louis. How are you?
First one to come.
Good evening. I'm very well, thank you.
Good, good. And how do you feel your races went this evening?
Yeah, pretty good. I was actually quite disappointed with the sprint race, but feature race went as well as I could hope it could go. So yeah, very happy.
Yeah, and a massive congratulations. You know, you always say that you can't quite catch the likes of Callum and Swizzy, but I think you definitely proved that you could tonight. But I will hand you over to Kirk, who I'm sure is ready to ask you a few questions about that.
No worries.
Yeah, congratulations, Louis. P2. Obviously, we saw you running at the front for quite a few laps of that race. In the end, was Swizzy just a bit too fast?
Yeah, I think so. To be fair, I don't think I was ever going to catch him. So, yeah, he was just that sort of half a second-ish a lap faster than me. So, no, I wasn't going to catch him. But I'm happy with P2 at the end of the day. And I tried a slightly different strategy, doing a 3-stop just to try and just kind of go as flat out as much as I could, and it worked out well in the end.
Obviously, we see that you now following the previous round where Evo couldn't take part, you moved up to second in the championships. Obviously, out finishing Callum in both the sprint and the feature race tonight. Do you think you could take the battle to Callum in the championship?
Well, I mean, it's going to be difficult. Who knows? I mean, I've had a good round, but I was hoping this was probably my strongest round for me. I think out of all the races this season. So, I was hoping for a good result here. So, but I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Spa, it might rain. So who knows what could happen there. So, but we'll give it a go. You never know what can happen in racing. You've only got to make one mistake, haven't you? And you could end up at the back of the grid. So we'll keep going to the end anyway.
And you say possible potential of rain in Spa, obviously a track with dynamic weather. Um, do you think looking to next week at Spa, would you want to see any rain? Do you think rain could possibly help you out in the battle?
Um, Personally, not really. I don't particularly like the rain, really. So no, but I mean, see what happens. But no, it would be nice for me personally if it's. I know it's nice to see the rain because it causes chaos. But personally, no, a dry race I think would suit me better.
No worries. I think that's about everything, Louis. Congratulations for tonight, P2. Very well deserved. I'm certainly looking forward to talking to you next week when I'm sure you'll make the podium again.
All right, cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
That's all right. Enjoy, a P3 and a P2 finish, which a big haul of points coming out of tonight. And like I say, you proved yourself. You're just as fast as those top runners. And like Kirk said, I'm sure we'll be chatting to you next week after what hopefully will be another brilliant performance from you. But lovely to speak to you as always. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing you racing around Spa next week.
Yeah, see you next week, guys. Thanks very much.
That's all right. I believe I've just spotted a coach that has jumped into the podium waiting room, so we will jump him in as well. Think I've got a minute. So, Coach, how are you? How did your races go this evening? Hello, Sharon. Hello, Mrs. Joker. And thank you very much for the follow, Gasty. We are just waiting to hear from Coach, but while we wait, we'll also bring in Swizzy.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. We'll hear from Coach first before we hear from Swizzy, our podium our winner in the feature race. But Coach, how do you feel your races went today?
Terrible. I just got bombarded with a long list of to do for work, and I just couldn't clear my head, and my pace, everything was just really off. And I don't know. I've had better days.
Yeah, obviously we know from last week, coming into this week after that sprint race victory, I know, Seaside is a difficult track to get right 100% of the time, and especially obviously, if you're thinking about other stuff as well when you're racing it, it just goes to show, the mindset does affect some of the racing, but you still did remarkably well. We were discussing in the commentary. A P6 finish is nothing to shrug your shoulders at around a track like this because of how difficult it is. But we thought you did well, Coach. So we're proud of you as always. But I'll hand you over to Kirk, who I'm sure has got a few questions for you and wants to hear a little bit about your race.
Sounds good. That's so great.
Hi, Coach. Congratulations today, P7 in the feature race. Saw you. Most pressing question of all. Obviously, on the final lap, we saw you and Midnight battling for P6 in the end. A little bit of contact there. What do you think of it?
Um, I have to go look at the replay. Saved it. I should have just gone for it, but I didn't. I was trying not to wreck us, and I think there was a little bit of a touch that sent me towards that second part of the chicane. But it could have been my fault. I don't know. I thought there was enough room, but it's unfortunate. And like I said, I mean, it would have been only one more spot. So I mean, it's not life or death. So it's okay.
Um, and obviously P7 today. Again, we saw a famous chef, bit of an alternative strategy. You think you could have possibly finished any higher today than P7?
I think I could have from my practice laps to what I did now. Like I said, my pace was off quite a bit. I don't know exactly what was on going on, and then also made contact with the wall on my own, so I had to pit early. So I had to run my last stint in softs longer than I had practiced. So by the end, when then I did catch up to me, I had no front left, and here I couldn't manage the car with no tire as well as other circuits. It was pretty difficult. So yeah, it made it really hard, but I did what I could. For the sprint race, I think I could have done a lot better. I felt really fast there for some reason, and I think it just kind of deflated my balloon a little bit when I had that crash, and just kind of everything went a little south for me. But I thought I could have fought for at least top three up there, but it's all right. Well, we'll practice and come back and fight next week.
And looking on to next week, obviously at Spa, um, are you looking forward to it? Obviously being Spa being a track that has dynamic weather, would you like to see any rain next week?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it. I actually don't care for it myself, but I've had good luck in rain. Every rain race I've had, I've done pretty decent. It's just you have to be super careful, and just you can't just drive it. You know what I'm saying? That you gotta really manage your inputs, and but I mean it's everybody's got to deal with it. So if the rain comes, and it's welcomed. So yeah, it'll be something different and fun to see how I do.
And just finally, looking into next week at Spa, what are your goals? Do you possibly want to challenge for another podium in the sprint race? And what are your goals for the feature race as well?
Yeah, well, for the sprint, I mean, the only good thing about this week is my standings will probably drop me a little more, so I'll, I'll probably be a little more ahead in the sprint race. So maybe I can get up there and hopefully take the win. I mean, top three for sure. And then for the feature, let's just see how the rain does. I mean, if it's raining the whole time or does it come in and out, it's gonna be a gamble to which tire to jump on. So I'm excited. Let's see how practice goes as well, and let's see what comes out.
Always, thank you for your time tonight, Coach. Congratulations on the P7. I'm certainly expecting you to do well again next week.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
I'll
Thank you. I
just
appreciate that.
echo that as well. And as Midnight said as well, Coach, be proud of yourself. It's you had a good showing as always.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that. I'll come back next week and hopefully do better.
Well, yeah, I look forward to chatting to you next week, and I hope all the practice goes well in order, for Spa. Potentially, that could be a wet race. You never know with GT7, but yeah, we'll look forward to you racing around next week, and hopefully be back, fighting or knocking on the door of that podium.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. You guys have a good one.
You too. So next up we have Swizzy, who I've was just having a look at the messages behind the scenes. Had to grab some food after that victory. Was that some hard work getting that victory around here?
Yeah, for sure. Uh, I don't even know what to say, to be honest, because it was 38 laps of pain, I would say.
You didn't really look like you were in pain there with your drive. It was a very good win from you. But obviously we remembered last week you were happy with just the podium here. So how do you feel after a feature race win?
Um, Good.
Good.
I don't really have any words for it. I mean, it was very nice race, very tricky race. Um, I mean, obviously, I'm very happy with it. It definitely helps with my motivation and being sick the past week, and but somehow, like everything just clicked after after the sprint recovery, and yeah, but like there was never like any moment that I was even thinking about winning, because like even that chicane alone is like big challenge, and just one small mistake and you can be out of podium. So it was definitely 38 laps excitement. Like it was after the last lap and last chicane, that was the point that I was certain that I was gonna win. So yeah, it was. There wasn't that much racing, at least for me, but it was still like very exciting race, the whole 38 laps.
Yeah, and we were very excited and very happy to see you back on the top spot of the podium, and we were singing your praises as always. But yeah, massive congratulations for your win, and I'll hand you over to Kirk, who I'm sure has got his questions ready and waiting for you.
Yeah, it's yours.
I just want to again congratulations with you for the win tonight. We saw throughout large periods of that race where you weren't quite leading or out front. Um, was there any moment during that race where you thought, I'm not going to win this?
Mm, Not really. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I mean, I felt my pace was alright and like good enough to win, but the problem was that how's the tires gonna last? Because I knew that obviously some people around me have much better tires than me. So I realized that I wanted to do 14-14 with mediums and 10 laps with soft. But when the mediums died a couple laps before, I think at lap 12 or something, and I was thinking about doing 3 stops, but I think it was too late on that point. So, and I think I even had to do 11 laps with soft tires. So I was just basically hoping that I can build big enough gap that even if my tires die, that I can still win. And luckily, I think I'm not sure, but I think Dark Lord also ran out of tires on the last laps, so that definitely helped. But yeah, luckily I had a big enough buffer to secure the win.
Mm. Obviously, well, we spoke to Louis beforehand, where he said he didn't feel like he quite had the pace to be able to challenge you tonight. Do you ever feel any pressure from any cars behind you in that race?
Uh, Maybe like the start of the race, I was a bit surprised that I couldn't build a big enough gap at the start, because I really wanted to pull away like instantly just to get some breathing room. But it was like, I don't know, I think it's the car, but like Lexus really struggles to warm up the tires. And after a few laps, it felt natural again. And then I did get like couple seconds gap, so that definitely helped because I don't know. It's just sometimes it's a little bit harder to drive when you have car right behind you because you need to watch the mirror or whatever. But I wouldn't say pressure, like all the guys behind me, obviously I know how fast they can go. They are not slow by any means, but I tried to focus, just surviving the chicane and do very consistent laps. And I feel like I didn't do any big mistake. Only mistakes are like some corners a little bit wide with the dead tires, but I didn't get damage, I didn't get penalties, so that was basically the target and also the podium. And yeah, today was just, I guess, lucky day. Everything clicked very nicely, apart from the sprint race.
Yeah, well done. And looking towards next week at Spa, what are your goals? What result do you hope to achieve? And do you possibly want any rain? Obviously, Spa being a track that has dynamic weather and that.
I mean, if I can choose, I would do the whole race with rain, but obviously that's never gonna happen. We're lucky that if we even see any rain, but I don't really want to set any targets. Like my favorite track, and I feel like it's easily my fastest track as well. So I would say if I just drive good enough for myself, I should maybe get podium, and whatever happens, happens. But like if I'm happy how I drive, no matter where I finish, I would be okay with it. But let's say the podium is definitely the target every race.
And just got an
No worries.
insight from Midnight before I let you go and before I pass you back to Kirk. Spa will indeed be a wet race next week for all of those concerned. So best get practicing in all sort of wet weather conditions. So yeah, you get your wish there, Swizzy. But yeah, sorry for interrupting you there, Kirk.
Yeah, does that help? Does that make you more confident for next week, knowing that there should be rain?
Yeah, I mean, I love rain. Like no matter what the racing game it is, I feel like it really brings out of the skills out of drivers, and it definitely makes it more exciting. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I would do all these races in heavy rain or whatever if I can choose. So I'm more than happy. Obviously, the rain can also kill your race easily, but I think doing like this is second season of this thing and we barely even seen any rain, so I think it's nice to see some rain.
No worries. Well, congratulations for today, Swizzy. And I'm certainly looking forward to seeing how well you can do next week. And I'm certainly expecting you to do very well next week. Um, well done for today, and I look forward to talking to you a bit more next week.
Thank you guys. See ya.
That's alright. See you next week. And if there is anybody that wants to jump in, have a quick word with us before we end the stream, feel free. We've got a few minutes left if anyone does want to come and have a quick chat. But Kirk, it looks like we'll be dancing in the rain next week.
Absolutely. That has got me very excited for next week because rain certainly spices up the entire event. We could almost certainly see some drivers who maybe aren't quite the quickest in the dry have the levels the playing surface equalized with the rain. Obviously, we saw our drivers like Chef. Chef, he wanted a little bit of rain to spice stuff up, which we could also I could certainly see him up towards the front and challenging Sarah.
Yeah, and like Swizzy just said, obviously sometimes rain is it's good to see, but also it can make the races very unpredictable at times. So it will be interesting to see how the racers deal with the wet weather conditions. As Swizzy alluded to, we haven't seen it yet in the 2 seasons that we have been racing, so it'll be good to see something slightly different, and like I say, it will keep the drivers on their toes. And yeah, it depends how heavy the rain will be as to how many kind of incidents may happen. But I'm confident in all the drivers that they'll have a lot of fun in the rain, and it will again be very close racing.
Absolutely. I think the rain certainly makes everything to a certain degree a lot more skill dependent as well, because you have to be obviously a lot more tentative using curbs, a lot more tentative while applying the throttle, and sometimes just going a bit wider than you normally would want to carry that extra momentum around the corner rather than taking the racing line, Sarah.
Yeah, and it just goes to show, if you practice in the dry and then the rain is scheduled for the feature race, for the sprint and the feature race, it goes to show, I think practice will definitely make perfect coming into next week if the drivers have the opportunity to even get a few laps under their belt in the wet weather conditions. I think we'll see, a lot of drivers feeling more confident out on track in the rain. But like I say, I'm excited to see what the drivers can do around Spa, a track that we all know and we all enjoy on the Formula 1 calendar, and I'm excited to see it in our calendar. But before we end the stream, a massive thank you to all the drivers that did pop in and have a quick chat with us, and for all drivers as well, keeping us entertained with some good battles on track. And I definitely recommend going back and watching the commentary and the races from the driver's point of view. But this will be uploaded to the Nighthawk Racing YouTube, so remember to go over to there, give it a like, give it a subscribe, and we will be watching Lobby 2, the 2 races that happened over there. I'm excited to see how the Lobby 2 drivers done. I've had a little bit of an insight from Sharon that it was very, very fun, but also a bit of a challenge to survive, so I'm already excited for that. But again, massive thank you for all of the drivers in both lobbies. And hopefully next week everyone's looking forward to it. And make sure to follow and, like I say, subscribe to the YouTube. Tune in this time, 8:30 p.m. British summertime next Wednesday, for what will be round day of the Nighthawk Racing First Championship around Spa. But Kirk, before I sign off, is there anything you want to add before I end the stream?
I think you set everything up quite well, Sarah. I'm certainly looking forward to next week now that rain has been confirmed for next week. It's certainly going to spice everything up. It's certainly not a round you're going to want to miss. So it's been a pleasure as always, and I'll certainly look forward to being in the co-commentary booth with you next week, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it already. And let's go and say hello to a fellow GT7 streamer. But yeah, I look forward to seeing you all next week, and again being joined by Kirk in the commentary booth around what should be some very interesting laps around Spa. But yeah, getting towards the end of the season, it's going to heat up in the championship battles, so make sure to keep an eye on that on our socials. But apart from that, it's good night from me and Kirk, and we will see you next week for what will be a very wet Spa. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will catch you next week. Bye bye bye.